Zone 3 Podcast, RSNA 2023. I am with my man Toby here, and we're here to talk about something pretty special, something I feel like the industry's needed for a little while, and it's been all over social media lately. Something called a CAIRE report tool. You want to tell us a little bit of what you're working on there, Toby?
Sure. So the existing adverse event reports, if you want to find out what happened, something went badly, pretty much the only thing that's at your disposal is the FDA MAUDE database. And that's really a regulatory compliance database. That's just the manufacturers have to report this adverse event to the FDA. So most of them contain the bare minimum information, and what they usually can always be counted on to include is we, the manufacturer, told the site not to do the bad thing that they did it anyway, and therefore this bad, which doesn't really help if your goal is to figure out what lessons can I learn from this? How can I, given that this bad thing already happened, how can I learn a lesson from it to stop it from happening again?
Right.
And the FDA database was never really set up to do that in the first place. Second place, the FDA database covers every single medical device that the FDA regulates. Right. MRI accidents happen because of the very unique attributes of MRI. So asking these general questions that apply to coronary stents and, orthopedic hardware and bronchoscopes
right.
and MRI, you're really not going to be able to ask a set of questions that really kind of drill down into each one of those sorts of problems.
Right.
That's the whole reason behind the CAIRE reporting structure, is we wanted to build an adverse event and near miss good catch reporting platform that is specific to what we face in MRI.
Oh, I love that.
If we ask the right questions and we collect the right information, we can then turn around and we can produce, end result reports that help everybody in the industry identify what works and what doesn't.
Right, and I know you've been involved in some litigation. Make sure you check that episode, but just some law court cases and things like that with incidents. And I know it's important to be able to do kind of a case review process. Is this kind of something that can help, kind of benefit on that end of just kind of being able to review the data as well?
Well, I'll give my own sort of personal experience. The expert witness stuff that I have done has been really invaluable in terms of helping me be better at MRI safety. And the reason for that is obviously when somebody's suing somebody else about something that went badly, they're going to pick apart every single detail, right? They're going to get down to the nitty and the gritty, as deep as they can. Going through that experience many times has really helped me be able to better see the contrast between the information that we've got and what's actually knowable, right? So yes, the whole purpose of CAIRE reporting is that ultimately we're going to produce this information that will get down to the nitty-gritty, that will help inform sites, MRI practitioners, radiographers, MR techs, radiologists, medical physicists, radiology admins. This is essentially the Cliff's Notes version of what would be discovered during a litigation or lawsuit. Sure. The idea being, let's learn what we can. Right. We can't go back in time and make the thing not happen that happened.
Right.
But given that it's happened, the number one obligation that we have is to learn as much from it as possible and share that information as wide as we can.
Oh, for sure. And I know there's been a few people who've had questions about the personal data that is given and just how it's handled. Do you want to speak on that?
Sure. So there are a series of permissions. When you go on to report, again, it doesn't have to be an accident or an injury accident. It can be a near miss or a good catch kind of situation. But when you go on to report, the platform will ask you, what information are you comfortable sharing? There's some folks, I personally am sitting on half a dozen adverse event reports that people have shared with me that they have essentially said, yeah, I'm the only person my facility knows I know about this. So if the information gets out about this, I'm in hot water, right? So I'm like sitting on that information until it becomes safe to kind of share.
Right.
CAIRE reporting is doing the same sort of thing. If you come to us and you submit an adverse event report and you're like, look, this is going to get back to me if the details of this kind of get out, that's cool. Obviously, we want your permission to share as much information as possible, but if you think it's going to put you in hot water, you can say, look, I'm giving you all this information. I only want you to use the aggregated data, that this was a projectile accident, that this was a burn, that it involved a Siemens MRI or a Philips MRI, that, we were Joint Commission accredited or ACR. None of those things are really going to, paint the target on the individual who's reporting it. So at the lowest level, you give us the data. If you submit it, you're agreeing to do the aggregated, no specifics, shared. But then you have permission, you give us permission or not to, go into case studies and more detailed information. If you feel like you can do that and it's not going to point the finger at you, or even if it is and you can't get in trouble for it, give us the permission to do a case study. And that's when, in addition to the aggregated, this many burns, this many projectiles, this many hearing damage, this many contrast reactions, we'll also be able to say, and here are some really good informative case studies. Good in the sense that, they test existing best practices. We always say that sites should do X, Y, and Z. This site did X, Y, and Z. How did this accident occur? Or, hey, maybe X, Y, and Z really aren't the best things to stop this kind of accident. Maybe we need something new or different or strengthen, X, Y, or Z. So all of that, the case study is really geared towards producing actionable information about safety.
So to kind of wrap that up for sure, just to be clear about it, if you submit a report, you're pretty much anonymous unless you give us permission to share your information.
Right. So you can't submit a report completely anonymously. You can't.
We have to be able to verify the information.
Right. But once you create an account, a login or whatever like that, that information is stored separately than the adverse event report information that you're giving us. The reason that we have to have folks create an account is so that if you get additional information, right? So this accident happened on Tuesday and it's just Wednesday, but on Thursday you learn something new, or Friday or the following week, right? We want you to be able to come back in and update that information. So the only way we can really do that is if you set up an account to be able to do that kind of thing. But yeah, the information about who you are and what that event was are kept in separate buckets, and the information that winds up going out to the world is the event information.
I see.
The other thing, since you were talking about sort of the confidentiality of the reporter, the other thing that's really important to recognize is in no way is this a name and shame, objective.
Put you on blast.
Right.
Type of thing.
So the facility where this accident occurs, right? We're going to be just as diligent about protecting the identity of that facility as we are about the individual. So, yes, we'll want to verify some of the details, and so us knowing, where this happened and who the people were involved and that kind of thing is necessary to being able to investigate it. But once we just have just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing, that's what gets published. And, again, it's not name and shame. It is not meant to drag anybody through the mud. It's meant to learn what we can learn about other adverse events that is shareable, is usable across the community. So when somebody comes and fills out one of the reports, they'll essentially have the option. If you only want to report to CAIRE reporting, that's cool, you can do that. But we also give folks essentially a one-click option. Do you want a copy of this report to be sent to the FDA MAUDE database, right? So you can click that if you want to. Do you want to report this to the State Department of Health or whoever the state regulatory authority is in your state? Click that and that'll get forwarded on. Do you want to share this information with your accreditation organization? Click that. So it can be sort of a one-stop shop. You can be, just come to CAIRE Reporting and you can share that information with nobody, and just sort of keep it as its own thing. Or you can say, you know what, this is the kind of thing that Department of Health needs to know about. This is the kind of thing that, Joint Commission, ACR, that they need to know about, that sort of thing.
So at the end of the day, an incident happens, where should the community go to file a report?
CAIREreporting.org. Go in. You can complete one of these reports probably in less than 5 minutes. Most of the questions are really sort of boiled down to click buttons.
Right.
What type of adverse event is it?
Right.
Click on the button that describes that. Yes, there are a few locations where we ask you to provide some narrative to kind of explain it.
Right.
But those are pretty short. On your phone, 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. You can upload pictures, you can add information, all that sort of stuff. And again, all of the identifiable information about you, about your institution, all of that gets segregated. None of that gets shared out in the open.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Toby. Love what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those things that has been, Robert was giving me the shimmy, so I didn't know what the shimmy meant, but now I know what the shimmy means, and it means there's something special. So the 2023 RSNA draft selects Tobias Gilk as the CAIRE Reporter of the Year, and he wants to ask you, do you care?
That's great.
Thanks, Toby.
Reggie, thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you, Zone 3.
Right. Thank you guys for watching. Zone 3 Podcast. We are out.